Hey everyone, so today we are diving into a story that you probably think you already know. The story of us. For years, we've had this picture of our own evolution, but some brand new genetic research just dropped a massive plot twist. It's completely rewriting our relationship with our closest ancient relatives. You're going to want to stick around for this.
Okay, so it really all boils down to one huge question. What was the spark? What drove the evolution of the most complex thing we know of in the entire universe? Yep, that 3-pound lump of genius sitting between your ears. The journey to becoming us is really the story of our brain's incredible growth spurt. So, to really get a grip on our tangled past, we have to start with the forces that shaped our minds in the first place. What were those big evolutionary pressures that set us on this totally unique path?
Now, the really cool thing here is how all these drivers fed into each other, creating this amazing feedback loop, right? Living in bigger, more complicated social groups, that demanded more brain power, and that extra brain power led to crafting better tools. Those tools helped us get our hands on better food. Think nutrient-packed meats, omega-3 rich seafood, which gave our super hungry brains the fuel to grow even bigger. And the secret sauce tying it all together, language. It let us share all these complex ideas and just supercharge the whole process.
And this brings us to our most famous and, let's be honest, most misunderstood relatives, the Neanderthals. For so long, we pictured them as this separate, dead-end branch on our family tree. But, as it turns out, genetics has shown us the connection is, well, it's way more intimate than that.
So this is the story we all know. As our ancestors moved out of Africa, say 50 to 60,000 years ago, they met and mingled with Neanderthals. The result is that today, if your ancestors are from outside of Africa, about 2% of your genome comes from Neanderthals. For the longest time, we thought this was a one-way street. We were wrong.
And this, right here, is where the story completely flips on its head. A truly groundbreaking study has just revealed that the simple story we've been telling for years is missing a huge, huge piece of the puzzle. The genetic conversation between our species was way older and so much more complicated than we ever dreamed.
This is the question that just changes everything. What if, long before Neanderthals gave their DNA to our ancestors, our ancient ancestors had already given their DNA to them?
This really lays it all out. The genetic exchange wasn't a monologue, it was a dialogue, a conversation that went back and forth for hundreds of thousands of years. It turns out, an ancient line of Homo sapiens, way before the famous out-of-Africa migration, was meeting up with Neanderthals and leaving its genetic mark.
So how in the world did scientists figure this out? Well, the smoking gun is something called heterozygosity. Just think of it as a way to measure genetic variety. Neanderthals, they had a smaller population, so their genome was pretty uniform. But researchers started finding these weird pockets in their DNA that were just buzzing with diversity. And those were the genetic fingerprints left behind by our more genetically diverse human ancestors. It was hiding in plain sight the whole time.
Okay, so this discovery doesn't just add a little footnote to the story. It forces us to tear out and rewrite entire chapters of our shared history. The ripple effects here are absolutely enormous.
For starters, this wasn't just a tiny little bit of gene flow. Get this. Scientists found that the Altai Neanderthal, who lived over 120,000 years ago, had a genome that was about 3.7% ancient human. That is a higher percentage of human DNA in that Neanderthal than the Neanderthal DNA most of us non-Africans are carrying around today. Just wild.
And here's another bombshell. It turns out that those pockets of human DNA were kind of fooling us. They made the Neanderthals seem more genetically diverse than they actually were. So once scientists digitally removed that human DNA, they realized that our previous estimates of the Neanderthal population size were off by about 20%. They were likely a smaller, more fragile population than we ever knew.
So our whole timeline of interaction just got stretched way out. We now have proof of at least 2 different waves of humans giving DNA to Neanderthals, one as far back as 250,000 years ago, and then came the famous Neanderthal to human exchange much later. Our histories have been woven together for an incredible stretch of time.
And this helps solve a puzzle that's been bugging scientists for a while. You see, they'd found Neanderthal-like DNA in some modern African populations, which made no sense because we thought their ancestors never met Neanderthals. This new research clears it all up. The Neanderthal DNA in people outside of Africa, that's from the recent event. But the traces found in some people inside Africa, that's likely an echo of that much older event, when ancient humans first gave their DNA to Neanderthals, and then some of their descendants eventually came back to Africa.
So, What does this all mean for the big picture of human evolution? When we put all these new pieces together, where is this long, tangled story actually heading?
This quote from the researchers who made the discovery just completely reframes the whole end of the Neanderthals. It suggests they didn't just go extinct because they were outcompeted. It was more like, as a smaller population, they were slowly absorbed over time into the much larger gene pool of modern humans.
And that is the huge takeaway here. Our origin story isn't a simple tale of one group showing up and replacing another. No, it's the story of a long, messy, complicated merger. Our DNA isn't a purebred anything. It's a mosaic, a beautiful tapestry woven together from all these different threads of ancient humanity. We didn't just outlast our relatives, we became them, and they became us.
And you know, the story of constant adaptation and merging isn't just some dusty relic of our ancient past. It really speaks to a core part of who we are. On an individual level, we see it in our own brains every day. That ability to reorganize, to rewire itself based on new experiences, that's called neuroplasticity. It's like the modern-day echo of our species' incredible long history of adaptation. Which leads us to one final, fascinating thought. For hundreds of thousands of years, pressures like living in big groups and making tools drove our brains to get bigger and more powerful. But today, well, today we're offloading our memories to our phones and our problem-solving to AI. So as these totally new technological pressures start to reshape our minds, you have to wonder, what's the next chapter for the human brain? What are we becoming now?